Do you feel like you're always giving something up when it comes to managing your finances? Well, it's because you are. There are simply some sacrifices that are completely unavoidable. Let's break them down and talk about them in today's video. Welcome to Money Talk with Skylar Fleming, where you learn what you weren't taught in school. Let's get talking. This video stems from my most recent podcast episode with Josh Tonge, one of my longest friends. Him and I broke down some of the ways that he has to sacrifice for college, and it made me think, what other sacrifices can you not avoid when you're going through your financial journey? There's a lot of them. There's things like maybe not contributing as much to your 401k, or maybe you're taking on a little bit of credit card debt because you just can't make it, or you're sacrificing by not going out to eat with friends, or you're building up that emergency fund because you know that's important. There's a lot of sacrifices when it comes to money that you have to make. So let's talk about them. It's a really great conversation to start having a money talk with a friend. What sacrifices have you not been able to avoid throughout your time handling your money? Share this video with a friend and then say, hey, what can you not avoid when it comes to managing your money? And then compare and contrast your ideas. I know one thing to consider is time. Time is a huge factor when it comes to the benefits that your money can have for you. So is it okay to sacrifice time? When is it okay? When is it not okay? What are those small things you can do when you are having to make financial sacrifices that allow you to keep reaching your goals? How do you think about financial sacrifices? How do you know that it'll all be okay? And how do you continue to make those small steps? Those are the three main things that I want to talk about in today's video. So how do you understand sacrifice? Well, there are some things that are just unavoidable. There's things like limited social spending, like I mentioned. Maybe you're going to have to scale back your social life a little bit in order to save some money for your emergency fund that you know is so important. A couple of other ones might be living with roommates or avoiding comparison. I know that's a sacrifice that's kind of easy once you get it going, but comparison can be something that just robs you of all your money. So that might be a sacrifice you need to make. Get off Instagram, get off social media, and stop comparing your life to other people's lives when they may be buried in credit card debt, but just not sharing that. So there's a lot of sacrifices you need to be willing to make and understand what constitutes a sacrifice. Really, it's just giving up something for something else. It's giving up something now for something in the future. You need to weigh your options. Is there something you really want to buy? Well, I have a great story clear back in episode 63 of my podcast that I'd like us to take a listen to. But if it is something that maybe you're trying to strive towards a goal or progressing towards financial independence, maybe you do need to make small sacrifices in those areas. So that's why this is an interesting discussion point to have. For my wife right now, she loves brand name Lysol cleaning wipes, but we go with the great value ones right now because that's where our financial priorities are. We don't need to have name brand cleaning wipes. But if you like to travel, maybe you need to find local family getaways or locations that you can spend far less money instead of having some big extravagant vacation. You can still have memorable experiences on a cheaper budget. So make sure you identify that area that you're okay with spending extra money on, but also be willing to give a little bit there if you're trying to make savings goals and reach something like financial independence. So it's okay to have somewhere that you'd like to spend your money on. That story was a great one about how my wife and I had to decide between brand names. I know it's something silly and small. It's only a few bucks, but those kind of decisions add up. When you're deciding between the sacrifice of name brand cleaning wipes versus generic brand cleaning wipes, those sort of things add up when it comes to name brand pizzas versus generic pizzas, which I do not like. I have to still get the name brand pizzas because some of those generic pizzas are just not good. So there are some sacrifices where you have to decide both ways. But look at those things. See where you can make out those little bits and pieces of your money because it's going to make those bigger sacrifices a whole lot easier when you have that firm foundation underneath you. And maybe the sacrifice you need to make isn't directly financial. Maybe it's a little bit of your social life. Maybe you need to not go out to eat as much or not go out with friends as much. Let's listen to what Josh had to say about how he felt his social life was impacted by trying to make money and go through college.
So most of my time, I worked around 30 hours and had at least 12 credits, if not a little bit more. So it took up a lot of my time.
I bet.
It's just like managing money. You have to manage your time. A lot of times it felt like I was only doing work and school and I didn't have enough time for a little social life. But they're not going to be balanced equally. You know yourself and you know what you need. So you have to balance in a way that be like, okay, I need this much social time on top of that. So let me cut something out, but prioritize. I felt like managing my time it's something that is vital.
All right, thanks again to Josh for coming on my podcast, and be sure to go check out that episode with him. But he shared that he did have to scale back in his social life a little bit because he was so pressed for time with college and working his job because he had to make sure he had money. He could have sacrificed his money and just lived off loans and had a more, fun and big social life, but it was important to him to not take loans out for everything when it came to college. So his sacrifice was his social life to make sure he didn't put himself in as deep of a debt hole as he could have. So that's something that's very important to consider. Another thing that I think everyone needs to realize is that it's all going to be okay. You have enough time on your side regardless of where you're at. You just have to make sure your priorities are in the right place. If you're very young, your priority can be being very wealthy and having financial independence. If you're on the older demographic and maybe you don't have as much time, maybe you just need to realize where you need to save and start cutting back a little bit. But time is always going to be on your side. There's always time to make it work. The saying goes that the best time to plant a tree was yesterday and the second best time is today. So make sure you get started. The main thing you need to know is what trade-offs are you making? You need to understand them, because that's where your sacrifices can get really dangerous, is if you don't understand the trade-off you're making. Let's compare credit card debt and 401k savings. Maybe you don't understand that spending on the credit card is robbing you of that 401k savings that's going to compound and grow and grow and grow. So you need to make sure you understand the trade-offs. Where are you taking money to put it somewhere else? So credit card debt is something that can be really dangerous. One thing I want to talk about is monthly savings versus monthly subscriptions. Are you subscribed to a bunch of monthly charges that maybe you don't really need and you could cancel if you wanted to? And then once you take that amount and put it into your monthly savings, you can refer to my episode about sinking funds and learn how to save for those big goals that you want to hit. And I have an upcoming episode about vacations. That monthly savings could really get you started after you listen to that episode about vacations next week. So be sure to head over to your podcast player and subscribe to Money Talk with Skylar Fleming. But turn those monthly subscriptions into monthly savings and start saving the big bucks and understanding your trade-offs, and then it's all going to be okay. One point I'd like to emphasize is starting small when you really can't hit that full goal. Maybe your goal is to max out your 401k, but that's just not realistic. Let's listen to what Josh had to say when he started to think about retirement and got a little worried that he wasn't making his goals that he wanted to with his retirement.
It's really hard in college to really focus on that. I've become aware in some of my finance classes, I'm like, there's a lot more I could be doing. But one day I was sitting in there and we were talking kind of personal finance. I'm in a corporate finance class, and it was just kind of some self-reflection questions. And one of them was talking about retirement and some other things that you don't really think of right now. And I was like, I don't have retirement. I was like, oh, wait a second. I have a 401k with my employer. And so they do a match. And so at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So up to the percentage that they'd match, that's how much I put in. I'd really suggest that for anybody because, not even thinking about it, I've earned
several thousands of dollars in that at least.
I've earned some retirement. And I was like, hey, I have my foot in the door.
The 401k match, just like Josh said, can be that small thing that is a great place to get started with achieving your 401k goals, because maybe right now you can't truly put as much into the 401k as you want to. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not. Maybe you need to look at other places in your budget and figure out where those trade-offs are coming from and make sure you're putting more into your 401k or into your IRA if you don't have access to a 401k, but make sure you're saving for retirement, even if it's just a little bit, because you can't make that full contribution that you want to right now. But that freedom in the future comes from understanding the sacrifices that you have to make today. Like I said in the beginning, one of the key takeaways for today's video is sacrifice things now for a better future rather than sacrificing your future for a better now, because those trade-offs are going to be a whole lot easier when you make them now, when they can be smaller, when you start younger. They're going to be a whole lot easier and have a whole lot more reward down the road. So even though there are some unavoidable sacrifices that are good and bad, you need to understand them and know how to apply them towards your financial goals. The main message is clear. Sacrifices are part of the journey. They're something that everybody has to go through, but understanding them is key. Whether it's your 401k, monthly savings, credit card debt, maybe you don't go out to as many social outings and that's your sacrifice. Understanding how those apply to your personal finances is what's going to help you progress along that path to financial independence and along your financial journey. In essence, embrace those small things that you can do today to help mitigate the risk and the impact that those required sacrifices have. And make those required sacrifices that are good work even more in your favor. Maybe you need to go out to eat less because that's going to save you money, but it's also going to help you get healthier. Figure out which financial sacrifices can have bigger impacts beyond just your wallet and really push for those ones, because that's when it can get really fun, when you start to see sacrifices work in your favor and you start to see more than your money head in the right direction. If you liked this video, you're really going to like episode 122 of my podcast, How Managing Money Can Be Hard, especially in college. And we're going to hear all about how you can do it with my friend Josh Tonge. So be sure to head to any podcast player or click here on YouTube to listen to that video. But thank you so much for watching Money Talk with Skylar Fleming. Have a great week.